Hello everyone, and welcome to Let's Get Crafty. This is Miss Becky at the Glen Carbon Library, and this is our Let's Get Crafty for January. And today we are going to be working on something called Alpine Trees. And let me show you an example of what we are going to make today. This is what it's going to look like when you are finished. Something like this, but your own version of it. What we have here is we have a snowy sort of hillside along here. It's nighttime in this picture, so the background is black, and we have a big alpine tree, otherwise known as like a pine tree, right, or an evergreen. And then we have also, I've put some snowflakes falling from the sky, and so you can do that too, and I'm going to show you how. We're going to go step by step through this, but first let me show you the supplies that you are going to be getting in your bag. So the first thing is going to be some paintbrushes. We have a big paintbrush, its bristles are kind of stiff. And then we also have this smaller green paintbrush, and you can see those aren't quite so stiff, are they? When I tap it, it doesn't make quite as loud of a sound, does it? Can you hear that one? That one's a lot softer, isn't it? So those are our paintbrushes, and then we're going to be painting on two different kinds of paper today. We've got some white cardstock, which is just a little bit thicker than printer paper. And then we also have a piece of black construction paper. That's going to be our background. And we have a Q-tip. And that is what's going to create those little snowflakes on our paper. And then we also have a little fabric puffball, and that is what we are going to use. When I showed you the example, you can see this is a pop, something I used when I made the example. This is probably the size I used, and we'll dip it in the white paint and we'll just sort of tap it. So we're going to have a couple of different painting techniques that we are going to try out today, and you get to make your very own version of this. Everybody's tree is going to look a little different, isn't it? That's going to be part of the fun. Okay, so the first step in what we're going to be doing is, let's see, let me set this aside. We need to create our snowy hillsides, right? Can you see those? And so what we're going to do is take our cardstock and we're going to work with the other supplies. There's that word. The other supplies that are going to be in your bag, and that's going to be all these different colors of paint. Don't those look wonderful? It's going to be so colorful. So today I have sort of a medium color blue, a dark blue, a purple, and then over here we're going to set these aside for just a moment because this is going to be for our trees and our snow. But we've got two colors of green and we've got some white for the snow. Okay, so these are the containers that your paint are going to come in. There's our sort of lighter color blue. There is our darker blue. And here's our sort of purpley lavender. Now I've got different shades of these here as I'm building the kits. So you might end up with something that looks slightly different, right, in your bag. But you'll be able to follow along and you'll be able to make something that is wonderful. So I've already got my cardstock here. The other thing I'm going to include is a paper plate, and we will use this as our palette when we are working with our paintbrushes and the paint. And I'll show you how that's going to work. Let me see if I can fit that in here. Yep, I can. Okay, so for our snowy hills, you can add as little paint as you like or as much paint as you like. And the idea is to, let's see, what color do I want to start with? I think I want to try out this purple that I have. The purple was a little dark for me, so I added a little bit of white. And if you have other colors at your house that you would like to work with, that is a great idea. But you should be able to do this with what we have given you. Okay, so I've got way too much paint on my paintbrush there. So I'm going to come over here and just kind of make a little puddle of purple right there. And I like to do kind of like a swishy motion with this. The person that I sort of discovered this craft with, she's an art teacher. She uses backing paper. So you can see where I've made my example on this page. What she would do is just sort of trim off these pieces and use these pieces. So it's her recycling something that her students have already used, which I think is really clever. But since we're all starting fresh, not all of us are going to have something like this, we're going to make our own today. So, like I said, I want to sort of think about how this backing paper looks and make a pattern. It might look something a little similar, right? But this is your snowy hill, so you get to do it however you like. Okay, so enough talking. Let's get painting. We've got purple on our brush. Choose a color, and then I'm just going to swoop. Can you swoop? Be brave. You can do it. And then another swoop. I'm going to do some of these. I'm going to sort of spread out some of this paint in a pattern and swoop through it again. We're just going to go a little crazy on this page, right? Why not? Let's try some things out. Okay, so there's that. Now I'm going to try some blue. We don't need to rinse off our paintbrush because it's kind of nice to get some mixture of the colors in there. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to swoop this way. See how this works? Get a little bit more. Come along the edges. It's important to have something underneath as you're painting because you do want to paint up close to the edges with this. Ooh, let's try this darker color. I think I need to stir this one a little bit because I added a little bit of water. I felt like it was too thick for what I wanted, which is another tip. If you feel like the paint that you are working with is a little too thick, definitely add some water to it. Okay, and let's see, I'm going to come in here and do it here. Ooh, I kind of like that. I like how it's translucent. Are you having fun with this? It is okay to make it your own, and we'll see what patterns we end up with. Perfectly okay. I'm going to swish this off to the side a little bit. Get in some more purple. Maybe do some purple. Ooh, I think I'm going to mix my purple and my blue a little bit. And I'm going to Just have some fun with it. There we go. I'm going to throw in a little more of this translucent blue that I like so much. Come over here and dab a little bit. Do some patterns. Just have fun with it. Try things out. See what happens. See what you like. Okay, so when you are done and you are happy with what you have painted, it is best to set it aside for a little while and let it dry, okay? So if you like, this is a good place to pause the video while you let your paintings dry. We are working with paint that, as long as you haven't put too much on the page, it should dry pretty quickly. When I did this for my test one, I would say it was probably dry in about, I don't know, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, just to be sure. So it's a good opportunity. Go get a snack, read a book together, something like that, something that's relaxing while you let your paint dry. And then you can come back and we can do the next step. So for right now, if you want to keep watching, you are certainly welcome to. And we're going to treat this like you guys have come back after you've let it dry. I am going to set this one aside because I have one that I made the other day, and it is already dry. It has been dry for a long time. So this is what I'm working with, okay? You see, I really got into the dots on this one. That other one is a lot more swoopy. I was really into pushing the dots in on this one. And so now what we're gonna do is we get to tear up this paper. It's fun, right? So we're gonna take this, you're gonna think about how you want your hills to look at the bottom of this, right? And on my example, you'll see I tore 3 separate pieces of paper that I worked with. I have one long one along here, and I have one right here, and then there's one behind it. And we'll talk about how we can stack these in just a moment. But for right now, let's take our paper, and I am going to tear it. And you'll see as we tear, we end up with these pieces of paper that are whiter. And those actually are really neat because we can use it to give it a bit more texture at the top of our hills. Do you see that? So let's keep tearing. I've got one very long piece. I think I'm going to do, I'm going to tear some pieces and see how I feel about it. You can always adjust. Ooh, that one ended up kind of neat. However you like. The only thing I would suggest, and of course this is only a suggestion, it is your painting, is to not tear the pieces too small, because then you're going to be gluing some pieces down for a long time. But if that's the look you want to go for, that actually works really well. And of course, it wouldn't be me if I hadn't forgot to bring something in here. I just realized I need my glue. I can't do this without my glue. So I'm gonna go grab my glue very quickly, and then we will get right back to it. All right, so I am back. And I have my trusty glue stick and my scissors that we are going to need for this craft. Normally, I have these things organized, but it's been probably a week or so, maybe even 2, since I made this craft originally. So those details weren't at the front of my brain like they normally are. Okay, so we have our torn pieces. Let's get our black piece of construction paper. And for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close up my purple and my blue because I am done with these for now. And if you have extra paint, you can always set it aside to do another one of these paintings, or you can use it for something else. Absolutely. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it this way so that my paper is covered. So I have backing behind all of it. And I want to take a look at how I want my hills to show up on here. We can always tear the pieces so that they are thinner once we get to something that we like. I do like this one because I like all the white at the very top of it. I like this one too. I think this one needs to be thinner. Okay. And then, let's see. I like that one, and that one, and this one. How do you think that looks? How does yours look so far? Are you happy with it? You can always adjust it if you want to. And one other decision that I made with my example is I kind of liked leaving these parts long and off the page. I feel like that gave it some extra texture, which is what is nice when you're working with what we're making today, which is something of the style of art that is mixed media, right? So it's nice to have this extra texture. I thought that was sort of a neat aspect. But if you like yours nice and tidy, you can always trim off those edges, right? So for right now, we're just thinking about how we want our hills to look. And I'm thinking maybe I'm going to tear this one a little bit more. This one, put that in the back. I think I need to, I do want to give myself enough room to have a tall tree. So, kind of like that. And I think I'm going to tear off, actually, this is the part that probably takes the longest. I felt like it happened pretty quickly with my first one. And now I'm feeling a little indecisive, but that's okay. This part can take as long as you like. I think I do like this other one. I just want to tear this bit off to make it more of a slope. Like that. Okay. All right. The only thing that's important is that at the bottom, we don't have any of the black showing, so that it can look like a snowy set of hills. think I'm going to take this one, make it a little more sloped as well. Okay, and so now that we know where we want to lay our hills, we can take our trusty glue stick, set these other pieces aside, which would be great for another painting or another project if you wanted to do another one. And we're going to, let's see, oh, before we get the glue involved, we need to decide on our tree trunk, right? Because in our example, you'll see that our tree trunk is sort of tucked in one of these hills. And what we make the tree trunk out of is something that might be familiar to you guys who did, do you guys remember back in the summer, we did a craft and it was the painting where we were blowing through straws to make the coral. Do you remember what we used to make the sandy bottom of the ocean? Does anyone remember if you did that one with me? It is something that you get each time you pick up a Let's Get Crafty bag. And it is the bag, right? Do you remember that when we cut out the sand? We cut along here. You're going to do the exact same thing with some scissors, okay? I'm not going to cut up this bag because I've already cut up my first bag when I made my example. But I have some strips here from my original bag. And I'm going to take a look and see. I don't want it to be too thick because I want my tree to be really tall. And I feel like the best way for my tree to look really tall is for it to look like you're looking at it at a distance, right? So if my trunk is really thick, it looks like I'm very close to the tree. But if my trunk is very thin, then it'll look like the tree is a little further away, won't it? The closer we get to something, the bigger it looks. The farther away it is, the smaller it looks, right? So you get to decide how thin or thick you would like your trunk to be. And I'm quite happy with this one. I'm almost wondering if I want it to be a little thinner maybe. I think maybe I do. I'm going to make it slightly thinner. I'm going to take my scissors and there is my tree trunk. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to cut out of this bag, okay? In some families, you'll be getting, if you have a family of 4, you're going to be getting 2 bags. If you're a family of 3, you're going to be getting 2 bags as well. But if you're a family of 2 or 1, you're going to be getting 1 bag probably. And it is, there's plenty of paper here for everybody to be able to cut out a tree trunk, right? So we want to share the bag, which I know you guys are good at. You're going to share your things with your siblings or whoever else you're making this craft with. And you're going to get your tree trunk out of there. So we're going to cut it out of there, and then you get to decide the size of your tree trunk. And when that is ready to go, that is where we get to get our glue stick, and we're going to figure out where we want our tree trunk in these hills. And I think I want mine, where do I want it? I kind of like the idea of it. Like this is definitely, I want it in front of this piece. And then I think I want it sort of tucked in behind those. Okay, so I'm going to take the layers off now that I know this is my top layer. That's my next top layer, tree trunk, and this is my final piece in the back, right? So I'm going to flip this over and put some glue on it. I'm going to cover all these edges so they don't flip up on me. And get some in the middle, get it good and sticky. And try and guess where I need to place it a little bit. Now, while the glue is still a little tacky, I can move it around if I need to. Oh, I think I placed it too high. So I'm just going to pop it off real quick and move it down a little bit. And because these don't have glue on yet, I can sort of test it out and see where they need to go again. Yeah, just like that. So the next bit is going to be my tree trunk. And I want to tuck it behind that hill. I want it to look like we are hiking along on a snowy day. And we see this tree off in the distance, right? Okay, so set those aside and get some glue on my tree. All the way down. And try and get plenty of glue. I did have my tree trunk pop up on me a little bit because the paint is damp, and so when it gets a little damp, it's going to want to pop up. So we are better off just sort of getting plenty of glue on there. Let's see. This was the part that popped up on me last time. Let me get lots of glue on that little edge and stick it down. Okay, so that looks good. And now I'm going to place these again just to make sure I have everything where I want it, and then I can glue these along those edges, in the middle, nice and sticky. And I'm going to have my edges go off of my page just a little bit because I really liked how that looked last time. But you are welcome to make yours nice and tidy. I'm going to do this one. Get the top of my hill here. Line those up. Make sure they're nice and pressed down. And there we go. So that is off to a good start. I'm really happy with how that looks so far. Okay, so the next step, before we do that, our next step is to close up our glue. We're done with our glue. We don't want it to dry out on us. And we're going to set that aside. Oops, I just knocked my camera. There we go. Okay, so the next step is we are going to paint our tree. Now, one thing to keep in mind is when you are painting your tree, normally the way a tree grows, you've got your trunk in the middle, and normally under the trunk is the top of the tree. Mine's a little bent over. I only realized that after I'd painted it. Because when I'm painting out these examples, this is just me trying it out for the first time, right? This is just me having a little fun with it. And so I ended up with my trunk over here, but the top of my tree more right around here. So I've decided it is blowing a little bit in the wind, right? That's what I've told myself. So again, what do we always say? There are no mistakes, just happy accidents. I got a little story out of my happy accident. It's a windy day and my tree is blowing in the wind. So do not feel bad if you feel like you've done something that isn't quite right, because in that moment, it could be just what you need. Okay, so our glue is drying and we have our green paint for our tree. We have a darker green and a lighter green, right? So depending on your bag, you will have a couple of different shades of green to work with. And let's set those there. Oh, I have a piece of paper. Where did that come from? We're going to set that over there with its friends. And I've got my paper plate so that I can spread out my paint a little bit more. Because what you don't want, when you're working with this brush, you don't want it to be overly wet because you want to be able to see the texture of the tree as you are painting, okay? So we are going to dip our paintbrush into this green paint, the darker green paint. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to spread it out a little bit, just like that. Can you see how that looks? And then I started at the bottom the first time I did this. I think that was my mistake. I'm going to start at the top. There is the top of my tree. And then, what shape is an evergreen tree normally? Have you thought about that before, what the shape might be? When you look at my example here, does that remind you of anything? That's right, it's a triangle, isn't it? So that is the shape that we are looking for when we are painting our evergreens. Let me get a little bit more, come over here. Just kind of tap it on the paper plate. And then I'm going to think about the shape that I want for my tree. And I want it to come past the trunk. And then I'm going to go along the bottom here. And that makes a really great texture, doesn't it? Can you see that on the camera? I sure hope so. I hope that's coming across. It seems to be. It is sort of a dark paint right now on a dark background. I did this the first time with a different sort of paintbrush that looked like this. It was a little bit softer. So I'm really happy. The paintbrushes you guys are going to be working with are these stiffer bristles. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun for us. Okay, so we're getting some more paint on our paintbrush. And we're just going to tap our tree. Just like that. I'm going to get some more paint. Tap, tap, tap. And come in here. And really get that texture in there, right? Because pine trees, evergreen trees, they are full of these bristles, aren't they? They are not soft trees necessarily. I'm going to tap my way into there. Tap along here once I have a little drier of a brush to fill in these outside areas. And play around with the shape if you want to. Mine is heading away from being a triangle at this point. It's looking more like a bell. I've still got Christmas bells on my mind, apparently. So I'm going to fill that in a little bit more. And while trees, they can be very symmetrical, they aren't always perfect. They're living creatures, aren't they? And so things will happen with a tree that might affect how it grows. I want to make sure Then I'm still working sort of with my center in line. I want it to be pointier here. I still feel like I'm working with a bell here, but that's okay. That's my tree, right? I think I'm actually going to bring it down a little bit further too. That might help. Okay, so I'm going to always come over here to my paper plate and tap it out and tap along here. Getting paint whenever I feel like I need more. Okay. And I do have a little piece of, the brush that has come out on my painting, and I'm trying to figure out if I want to even bother get it, or if I'm, it kind of just adds some more texture. I'm just going to go with it. I think it's good. Okay. So, along here, making some extra branches, because pine trees, they don't have smooth sides. That's better. That's better. That's what I needed. They have a lot of texture along the edges. Okay. I think I'm happy with that. You go however long you like. You don't want your paper to get too wet, right? But it can take a fair amount of paint. Okay, so hopefully that is coming across. The next thing we want to do is I have some lighter green paint here. And what this does when you get this lighter green in the mix, the idea is that it gives it a bit of a dynamic look. So the parts in the front might be a little lighter green. And if you swish it about too much, they'll just kind of mix together. But if you tap this lighter green on top, it will keep those colors a little bit separate. Ooh, I think that's good. I think if I go any further, I'm just going to end up mixing them together, and I don't want that. Okay, so now I'm going to close up my greens, and we get to start playing with the snow for the white paint. Now, it's up to you if you would like to let this part dry and then do the snow on top. But I'm just going to move forward with it. I did it before with the paint being wet from the tree, and it worked out just fine for me. So I'm going to move forward with that in mind. So I've got my white paint. I've got my little puff ball here, and I'm going to put the snow on the tree first, and then we can put the snow falling around the tree, okay? I feel like I've gotten out of frame just a little bit. I'm going to scoot this up so we can still see. That is what that looks like so far. Okay, so we've got our happy little tree here in the middle of these snowbanks. And so I'm going to take my puff ball, just dip it a little bit in the white paint, and then I'm going to come over to our paper plate and find a spot that is clean. And again, I just want to tap to get that excess paint off. And then we want to think about where snow lands on a tree, right? So it's going to be heaviest up top. Ooh, that looks nice. I'm happy with that. And a little bit of the green is coming off on the puffball. That's okay. That's all right. So I'm going to come over here and tap, tap, tap again and work my way down the tree. doesn't have to be a straight line. It can be wherever you want it. Just like that. Put some right there. I'm happy with that. And so I'm going to set aside my puff ball. And I'm going to get my Q-tip. And this is where we get to put these little polka dots that look like the snow falling. Okay? So we're going to dip our Q-tip and then tap, tap, tap again like we have been. And then you get to decide wherever you like for snow to fall. Just stamping it. Is it a heavy snowfall? Is it a light snowfall? You get to decide. Right now I've decided I think it's snowing a lot. It's a very cold day in this painting. And it has been cloudy all day. And the temperature has dropped. And it's below 32 degrees. And the snow is falling. Just like that. Do I want any others? And you can always tap on your snowy hills that have already had plenty of snowfall. Just like that. How does that look? Is that fun? It's fun to tap, I think. I think this whole project is really fun. All right, guys. That's it. That's it for our project. There's some layers to this one, aren't there? So if it takes you a little bit longer, if you feel like I'm going too fast, as always, you can rewind, you can watch it again, you can take your time, you can pause it, do whatever it takes so that you feel relaxed and happy. Because when you are relaxed and happy when you're working on your crafts, it's going to come through in your art. And you'll be able to look back on it after you've made it. And it'll remind you of just how relaxed and happy you were when you made it, right? Which is nice this time of year because we want to feel relaxed and happy. Okay, guys, that is it for this Let's Get Crafty. I hope you guys have had a good time with me making it. I've certainly had a good time. And for February, it's going to be February 6th, and it's going to be Donut Valentines, all right? And I don't have an example to show you, but we're going to be making it out of cardstock, googly eyes, craft paper, and stickers. So it should be really fun, and we'll be making them in time to where if you would like to give somebody a donut valentine, then you will have it ready for Valentine's Day. So be sure to sign up for the next Let's Get Crafty once that has opened up to you guys. And I think that's it. You guys have a wonderful Saturday, and I'm so glad you guys got to join me for this one. I hope your trees turn out really well. If you would like, please, I would love to see pictures of your happy little trees. When those show up in my inbox in my email, it makes my day when I get to see what you guys make. So please pass them along to me. All right, you guys, that's it. Have a great day. Bye.